I want to share something with all you guys. The crossover, the rebirth, being reborn. You are literally reborn, and I don't mean it. It's a whole new beginning, and you go into what we call the knowing. I know. Um, it's the most powerful word on earth when you really are authentic with yourself and you face the demons within and you understand the left and right hemisphere in your brain and how they work, good and evil, yin and yang, the voices in your mind that tell you do it and don't do it, that are just personalities. The crossover is the expression used in the Bible when Christ, okay, the cross comes and talks to him with two angels or two serpents. The crossover is when you go back in your primal state, okay, and you control your vessel from the outside in instead of the inside in mentality. So you're not trapped in your mind anymore. It's like waking up from amnesia, and all of a sudden you go in a whole different way of thinking, a cosmic laws of life, a natural law of life, a natural selection. And that's what happens. And it's only in that point of time that you cross over that you get the visions that tells you 1,000 words, the picture that tells you 1,000 words are going to lie to you. The light bulb idea, right? Okay, a universal type language with a vortex of information that comes through the atmosphere when you're connected to it with codependent feelings and that kind of relationship, a two-way street. When you have that kind of codependent relationship in their frequencies, in your biofields, it's in your progenitor genes with your ancestor tools coded in your own DNA with the genetic memory. And those ancestry tools with those genetic memories will come to you out of the blue as you go through a transformation in your own DNA. DNA is declared the book of life for a reason, because we know in our DNA. And we don't know in the mind what we're doing, and you realize that when you genuinely cross over through a genuine rebirth. From that moment onwards, your personality and your mentality literally dies. And you get very confused at first. It's a hell of a wow factor. And you're gobsmacked in speeches and don't know what to say, like innocence. You return to your childhood completely innocent and realize every single thing you ever come to learn in your life, no matter what it is, every rabbit hole you lived in, every truth you believed in, every single thing you ever come to learn about life doesn't matter, because it's not what you think. And, the religious political behavior in New Age cults and their grammar with artificial intelligence and evolution mutation has damaged us so bad with the human conditioning, so we suffer with our body cells going corruption illusion during the daytime and can only be at nighttime. When you cross over, your aura in your body cells goes back to its sixth sense in the most positive fields with your biofields. Okay, and there's a quantum mechanics of a relationship with genuine loyalty, honor, respect, moral inspiration, encouragement. They're called the 8 codes and 8 tools of righteousness that gives you balance with peace and harmony. When you understand the relationship and you come right out of your shell, right, and you go right down to the light in the tunnel, you get the confirmation and the clarification, and you see it. And when you can see the future and you can see the timeline of sevenfold wisdom and knowledge, where everything is perfect, no more pain, stress, and fear, in a time where time stands still, life preserves, where everything is so beautiful, it's a massive clarification. And you can feel the quantum mechanics of that relationship in everything in life. And you're connected to fauna, nature, and all living things. And you feel that with that kind of relationship. And wow, it's the most powerful divine intervention and confirmation you will ever get from the laws of life, by natural laws and a natural selection and a natural order in life with your natural organic motor skills. When you go across and you go through the rebirth and you experience the most powerful confirmation like this with the most powerful divine intervention, you feel that kind of love pouring over you, can't get it wrong, and you realize your mind had no idea until this moment of what you were doing. When you realized that you had no idea what you were doing, the first thing that comes to you automatically is why Christ said, Father, forgive them, they do not know what they do, and they do not know any better. Because that's the first thing you discover yourself when you didn't know any better yourself. And it's one of the most unbelievable things in the world today that people don't understand anymore. The consciousness is unaware of the outside influence on our reality and how we harness the power, divine power to command nature. Yet God gave us that gift to do everything that Christ can and more in our DNA. And I am the first cab of the rank that's gone through this transformation with DNA studies done that can do every single thing that Christ can and more, and I'm not alone. Okay, through a natural selection, right? A natural selection taking place worldwide. So we become the forefront leaders of the natural selection, right? To go back in your primal state with a crossover, with a 40-day fast, and getting off screens, and stop all the unnatural selection and everything in your mind. So you stop dead in your tracks and isolate yourself and get away from everyone and every screen. Don't eat, take zinc, iron, magnesium, okay? Drink lots of water and liquid, okay? Listen to the book Freedom by Jimmy, give us an audio, okay? It's hailed by 16,000 top scholars in the world to be the holy grail of life with natural selection and the cure of the human conditioning that's going to save humanity. And we all suffer from that to one degree or another until you cross over back in your primal state and your aura goes clockwise 24 hours a day with genetic memory and 130 nucleoside molecules genetic repair kit and 2 monos mentality with all your biofields and your natural organic motor skills with natural selection. You have 32 senses, 27 senses don't work. We have remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP, telekinesis, levitation, spoon clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. We can do everything Christ can and more when we think outside the mind, but not with the mind. You see this in the movie Limitless, how he takes a drug from a plant called mayhem, called bread manna in the Bible, that Christ has most used. We developed this drug, the most powerful truth serum in the world, and enlightenment drug, and love drug, that brought about the human condition and cure in DNA studies done. And I developed that drug with the most powerful confirmation on earth and the biggest, most powerful study ever done, where people cross over, like you see in the movie Limitless, and come out of their shell, and then they master the mind, use 100% of the brain, with 7-fold wisdom laws, with a universal atmosphere, right? The Ask archives. You see it in the movie. But remember, it's propaganda. The genuine crossover also represented in Resurrection in Keanu Reeves in the movie documentary, The Matrix, where he controls his vessel from the outside in and not controlled it by his own mentality and his personality. And he controls his vessel and he controls yin and yang. So yin and yang is your worst enemies in your own mind. You are your own worst enemy, and your mind plays tricks and games in you, and you become your own person, your own warden, and you realise that your mind had no idea, because you're living in your mind, and you have brain fog to 85 to 93% of your brain, because you can only 7 to 15% the highest IQ in the world, which means the mind cannot work it out with any grammar or religious political cults or new age or artificial intelligence or evolution mutation. The mind cannot work this out. That's why you have to learn to think outside the mind and cross over and go back to natural selection and natural order with your natural organic motor skills. And you do that in a 40-day fast and isolating yourself, and don't be competitive with anyone and don't talk to people as little as you possibly can. Try to isolate completely, right? You can go off the grid if you can. Go right into this deep with When I Breathe In program that recreates the sacred secretion with the holy breath of life. You won a Nobel Prize without a credential. And the DNA studies with Jeremy Griffiths, We're Not Breathing, Mastermind Shihing, and the biggest masterminds in the world, they know how to harness power. And their biology and their DNA has 27 times more powerful immune system. And each one of these people, in 113 people worldwide, they can master their mind, use 100% of their brain organically, because they recreate the sacred secretion. Nobody else can. They can only use drugs. Like in the movie Limitless, or George Clinton when they're stealing of goats. With super soldiers, they can only use mRNA technology with methamphetamine, right, that opens up their perceptions, but they can't do it organically. They can't cross over organically, and you can't do it with a consciousness, because the conscious is not aware of the outside influence that controls your reality and prevents you from this. The crossover is the most powerful truth in the world, and the most powerful liberation. And you do not know what you do, and you've got no idea about this, because the mind doesn't understand until you go through this genuine experience yourself with 40 days, and you go deep with We're Not Breathing to recreate the second secretion with the Holy Breath of Life that resets your biological clock in your central nervous system and reactivates MDMA with ecstasy in the highest feeling you've ever had in your life. When you go deep with oxygen and deep breathing on a daily basis in meditation, close your eyes, isolate, listen to the book Freedom by Jimmy Givers, the Holy Grail of Life, DNA, that would take you through every rabbit hole to stick your head through the light out of the inner tunnel. Take the red pill, you can't go back, because it's like you wake up from amnesia and you'll never go back. From that moment onwards, you go through a massive transformation for 3.5 years that only Christ knew. He taught his disciples how to do this in 40 days and go through the same genetic memory of the same transformation for 3.5 years, which we teach here every day. With the highest success, with testimonies from our followers that's gone through this. And they go right back to their innocent like a child and break into tears when they get that kind of confirmation. Do you know everybody following my platform is suffering stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, and that's why they're here, because they suffer the human conditioning. Every single follower, every person in the world does. Most live in denial about it. And the reality is, every single person here, they are learning and have been learning for 3-4 years, right, with the book Freedom, and We're Not Breathing. And as you can see, a lot of my followers, they've done the 40-day fast, but first they learned about the human conditioning and the Holy Breath of Life and done this for 2, 3, 4 years. I always told them about the 40 days I spent in prison when I faced the demon myself and broke free, right, in the biggest DNA study and mental health research ever done in 2008 when they found my DNA. And that's when they discovered I can preserve DNA, the self-preservation made for life, where my aura goes clockwise with the genetic repair kit. Okay, and the mind has no idea. And I certainly didn't at the time until I went through that. But when I got out of jail, 10 years later, something else happened. Then I died and went through a massive transformation. And it's that genuine death experience that really took me to the other side and sent back. That's when I got the most powerful confirmation of my life. Being dead, leaving my vessel, going to the light in tunnel, into the other side and coming back. From that moment onwards, my personality died as I went through a massive transformation because I had no idea that I was possessed by my own mind and trapped in my mind mentality and my personality. And it wasn't until that moment that I died for 23 minutes and went through a massive transformation that we have recorded with DNA studies done 3.5 years later. I'm sitting down with top bowlers and see this myself. My DNA altered so dramatically with a genetic repair kit, with so many things, it was mind-blowing. But that becomes the confirmation, right? And I wasn't the only one in this study done. Natural selection been taking place since 1960. They did a study with me for 34 years and 24 years of DNA study since 2001. And I was only one cab of this rank with many others through natural selection. And the 212 phenomenon, where most of them came from, that had a death experience or near-death experience and went through the same kind of transformation with DNA studies done. I'm not alone. We were selected like this to be the forefront leaders, to help people cross over through the natural selection with a natural order. And it's not what you think. It's outside the mind, and the mind does not understand. It oppresses you, it limits you so much, and you can see that with a drug in the movie Limitless, because that's the truth. Without creating the sacred secretion, you cannot conduct with the same influence on your reality in the most positive fields. So we recreate the sacred secretion with We're Not Breathing program. It's won a Nobel Prize to oxidize the blood, and that's why I'm saying when you fast, take zinc, iron, magnesium, a little bit of select salt and water, drink lots of liquid, take methylene blue, it will help you a lot. 5 drops in a glass of water every day, right? The pure USP grade, okay? Take methylene blue because it gives you the same feeling as your natural organomesis with a meth effect, MDMA, only mild. But as you go into the We're Not Breathing program, it will activate your body cells the same way that meth does, that comes from a plant called mayan, organically. Okay, when it's made laboratory correct, it's got no human side effect. Not when it's made in the right barcode with the barcode in pH level in your serotonin, then it'll release the right molecules in the right format to give you the most powerful divine intervention with multiple perceptions, and changes all your perceptions with that kind of dimension way of thinking. And that's when you don't suffer mental disorder and defects when you come out of your mind, like in the movie Limitless, because you're not in your mind anymore. So you don't live with your psychedelic effect. You don't live off grammar. You live off something else with the universal language you see in the movie Limitless, a vortex of information that comes from out of the blue through the atmosphere, the light bulb idea. And when you cross over into your primordial state and you're genuinely reborn, man, you're speechless and gobsmacked because it's not what you think. And that's the first time you realize your mind had no idea what was going on, no matter how good you were, no matter who you were, where you come from, or what you thought you knew. Because it doesn't matter. It's something completely different outside the mind, and Christ was right, we had no idea. But when you go across like this, you start doing the deep breathing process, going through this transformation. And as you go through this transformation, as you continue to go through this transformation with deep breathing, you continue to make the euphoria, right? And then you adapt yourself in with oxygen, the holy breath of life, and change your oxygen level. That changes all your molecules with the sacred secretion you conduct with all your biofields in DNA, the book of life. And trust me, you go through a genetic memory with a genetic process that's all in your own DNA. A genetic memory with your ancestor tools that's coded in everyone's DNA. We can all do what Christ can and more right through that bloodline with that family tree when we follow the right footsteps and live by the natural laws of life with natural selection. In 40 days, you stop unnatural selection, and then you go across and start natural selection organically, where you follow your feelings instead of following your mind. And you start to realize your mind is not your best friend. In fact, it was your worst enemy, and it had you trapped, right? Like you're in your prison, your own warden, right, with your own mentality to believe in your own truth. And that's when you realize you were wrong. So wrong, you had no idea. And when you cross over, you start to get a grip of that, and those voices in your mind become less and less, and you don't get control by stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia ever again. You go through a transformation, and that's when you cross over, and the cross is crossing back to you. That means, like Keanu Reeves, you control your business from the outside in, and you talk to yourself and judge yourself and go through self-judgment. And you always watch what you say and make sure you use the right tools with the natural selection, with the relationship, and never use any other tools. Walk with the enemy, work with the enemy, love the enemy. Don't cause people to stumble. Help them get back on their feet. Love everyone. Love your enemy the way you love your neighbor, because your neighbor's your enemy. So is your family. What did Christ say? He didn't come here to save the world. He came here with a sword, right? A sword where you might have to use that sword to divide with your own family, lovers, and friends. Your own family, loved ones, and friends, because you might just have to do that. But you have to dedicate and you have to sacrifice yourself if you really want the truth. And you want to be free from everything you suffer from in your own mind and everything that holds on to you. This is repentancy in the 40 days where you judge yourself, when you go back into your primordial state and you go back to your childhood and realize everything that's holding on to you and what's holding on to you with your own self-judgment and how you feel guilty, right? How you feel the guilt, moral, and shame yourself because you're not taking responsibility for what you've done. And you face that fact. And you learn to apologize to yourself and everyone else and go through repentancy, where you go back to your childhood and you break free from every single thing that's been holding on to you. All your bad moments, you're abandoned. You know, most of us feel abandoned because that's the way we feel, abandoned. And then you realize why. And through this, you end up with the most powerful relationship where you realize the most powerful love you will ever get is this feeling. And that feeling you adapt into with your natural organic messages where love pours oil over you for the rest of your life with the most powerful divine intervention, high as a kite in the ecstasy feeling, MDMA, alert, alive, awake and aware, and you will never go back in your mind again. You'll go through a transformation and you'll realize you had no idea what you're doing until you went through this, and nobody does. They're very limited. They can only 7 to 15% of the brain, but now you access 100%. And when you start to access that, It is not what you think. It's deadly opposite, right? You need to be righteous. You need to be loving and compassionate, no matter what. You need to stay in balance with that relationship and not cause people stumble. Save sinners, save those sufferers, but also be prepared to always save yourself and cut off any person with that sword. That sword is your moral values with the laws of life. To do the right thing and to live by the quantum mechanic of that relationship, like the Father, who is absolutely selfless and will sacrifice every single thing for his children, innocent children. You return to your innocence like this. And that's the hardcore part. But you start to go through natural selection, okay? And you judge yourself constantly for the next 3.5 years, and you come in with perfection in the end and use the right grammar to express what needs to be said, and you know you hold the sword, so you have confrontational love and very tough love, and you don't care about anybody else or their religious, political cults or their grammar. You do not care because you know you're right. You're in the knowing. Once you're in the knowing, you can never go wrong again. You can never stuff up ever again. And then you're saved. And when you're saved, you go into a new dimension with sevenfold wisdom to live with the tree of life and reject the tree of knowledge. And then you become the master of your own mind with the most powerful confirmation and the most powerful divine intervention and the most powerful clarification.